Sure.
So let's see. Everyone has to go and find which one they're meant to be joining as well. So we will give people just a moment to actually get connected. Nice. So we have us, and then we've got a few people in here. I can see we have Jonas, Alex, Lena, Roman, Martin. Great. So welcome to the breakout on the environment with regards to the future of mobility. The way this is going to work is I will ask you all, hey, welcome. I'll ask you basically to raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment. If you can see down the bottom underneath the speakers, there is a raise hand button. Can everyone just try and do that now? Can everyone raise their hand? It's underneath the speakers, little hand. I can see Alex. Everyone just try and raise your hand, please. Speakers, you won't be able to do it because you're already on stage. This is for everyone who's not a speaker. So Martin, Roman, great. A few more of you as well. So the little, if you just joined us, raise your hand in the little button down underneath the speakers video. Great, can see a few more of you doing that. Wonderful. So what we'll do is I will ask you, well, it's up to you now to raise your hands if you have a question for Julian and Leia, and I will then give you the microphone. I'll hand the microphone to you, and then you'll be able to unmute yourself and you'll be able to speak. Not sure if your video will necessarily work, but you will be able to unmute yourself. So who has a question they'd like to lead with? Okay, Alex, I'm going to hand you the mic. Please unmute yourself. And I don't think video is going to work, but please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hello, thank you. And also thank you for your presentation before. It was really insightful. I'm actually also asking myself in the field of how to motivate people instead of putting taxes on like cars or on flights. So how can we motivate people to use mobility more sustainable instead of putting taxes? What do you do in this field?
Did you target someone with your question, or is it just maybe the both of us reply to this?
I think maybe you're doing more in this in the as a city.
Yeah.
Maybe also.
No. Sure, I can go ahead. Yeah, I just see the chat, actually. I can read that as well. Martin just raised a very important point. Yes, there's gamification. For instance, I have a very practical example of this. There's an initiative called City Biking. It's a literal translation of the German word Stadtradeln. And there's also an app, and there's incentives by your employee or by a lot of employees, even with the bigger companies, and they tell you to sign up for this, and you get some incentives, which would be like free meals or free pretzels, and the Germans love pretzels, and especially if they're free. So you can there's a lot of things going on in this direction, and that you have this gamification where you can compare yourself to other people within the company, but also with other teams just outside of your company. That is a big point, but also this is just one part of it. The second part would be also that you're encouraging to use sustainable mobility by well, the employers, like the big companies, the employers, they have the right mindset, they have the right tool set, and they can, give you incentives and give you some, well, distract some points of your, mobility budget if you don't use sustainable mobility options. So this is something very important. But yeah, maybe Laia, you have something to add to this.
Yeah, in our case, we are a public-private institution that we work together with, public authorities like city halls, like Julia, but also transit operators, etc. And then on the other side, we have SEAT, we have Volkswagen. So Volkswagen Group Innovation, what it used to be Volkswagen Research at the time, and the university. And we are involved in several projects in this direction. This is not my core knowledge. I am a technical, so I'm a civil engineer, but what we try to do in these projects, that there is other people working on that, sociologists and more urban planners and so on, is to build a community. So building communities is a great way of changing behavior. For example, we've been in with the frame of COVID, the European Community launched some funds available for public-private institutions. Within this frame, we were involved in a project called Future Mob that was supposed to increase people using their bikes through a community. What could a person like you or me get being a part of this community? First of all, services. They had information about, for example, shops that could interest them being bikers, and they had challenges and of course prices, as Julia was mentioning. So we were launching challenges at several points of this project, trying to set goals related to mobility going to work, but in those times of COVID restrictions, at least in Spain, we went through a very, very restrictive laws concerning COVID, and it was difficult to put to get people to work. We were all at home, but then related mobility for other issues, and then we put goals in terms of kilometers and so on, and at the end there were prices. This makes people have some data of mobility that compared to themselves is different, and then this increases, in this case, sustainable mobility quite well.
Amazing. Thank you very much, both of you. I'm going to hand the mic to Lena as well. Lena, if you would like to come on stage, and I've given you the opportunity, just unmute yourself.
Yeah, I will try. There it is. I think you can. Oh,
yeah, we can hear you. Please, go ahead. And see you. Hello.
Hello. So I have two related questions, maybe. So one is, if you really want to travel, like more for vacation or for as a change of scenery, not so much for traveling to work, one thing that you can see now is that you will have to go slower, right? You will, in most cases, be able to. So there is also an idea that maybe you will have to stay away longer to sort of benefit from going. And that's a general trend, I think, and that's also connected to insights that people have had now during the pandemic, that they really don't like the lives that they had because they thought that they had to go in this really fast mode. And a lot of people have reflected that this was not very good for them, actually. So there is sort of some drive to go towards sort of a more maybe thoughtful way of thinking about work and life and vacation and so on, that we maybe will be able to keep when we go back to more normal times. And what can we do to sort of, so we don't fall back into the same, but what can we also do more on a systemic level? It's not only a personal level. One thing I know, for example, has been the idea that it should be easier. Now it's actually harder to travel by train in Europe because it used to be able to that you could order tickets, but now you can't. It might be that you can go back to that, but the trains were actually abolished, because people would not go on them. But then now they're being taken back. So I mean, how can we? Maybe one is the community, like you talked about. But what other ways are there of thinking about this? Yeah, exactly. Like the prices. Like flying is much cheaper than going by train, which is silly, So, and somebody mentioned in the other break room that I was before that one of the things that made people fly, even on short things, was that it's cheaper than going by train, which is rather stupid. But what else can we do?
Absolutely. It's about inducing demand. It's very well known when we talked about transport, there's always a demand and a supply. When we reduce prices, there is an induced demand. So I'm going to travel more if it's cheaper, if I have more facilities to travel. And this is something that we learned, people that were doing transportation and planning cities, as I did in the 80s, 90s, that if you started making more roads, then people would travel more. And then cities would be more congested. So in the last years or in the last decade, the ideas were going back, reducing capacity of cities. If you see in most cities, what we did is not to widen our streets for cars, we reduced the streets for cars, and regulation. And this is what I guess that Julia can further talk about that as a public institution. But absolutely, reducing capacity, it's been a big issue in our.
Exactly, that would be one way to do that. I mean, yeah, that's, usually people use the term, you want to take away my car, and that's this very, very, well known term, but this is actually not the goal. You don't want to abolish the car, you don't want to take it away, but rather you want to give citizens more opportunities to travel. You want to give them more options. So if you say going by train is inconvenient, it takes long, at the moment you're stopping at borders, all of those issues. Of course, after COVID, you have to go back to this open border flow, for instance. But also, for instance, in the company I'm working for, we're currently looking into this. Okay, now I'm lacking a word here, but when tracks, you don't need this train connection anymore, so you take away the tracks. But now they're looking into taking reusing this track again, reopening the track, because you see an increasing demand, and all those people who are using cars instead of these tracks then can switch to going by train again. So it's all about giving people the opportunity, and then of course by a very low fare price, to go by train, or to go by car sharing, or to go by any other sharing. Ride pooling is also something you want to talk about in this area. I hope this sort of satisfied you with a sufficient answer.
Yeah, those were some ideas that we could do. I was also more thinking about a little, like, how can we keep the mindset without, I mean, it's somewhere in between. Right now we're at
Oh, now Lena's gone?
but we don't have to decide whether we want to do something. We can just say we're not allowed to do anything, so it's very easy. But when you get back to you're allowed to do certain things, we still have to take some informed decisions, and not say we can't do anything. So that's you have to, it's managing this, and maybe have some you talked about community, and I think maybe that's also one thing here. But yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Folks, we only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to ask just someone else to ask a question as well. Jonas, if I can hand you the mic also, if you'd like to please ask your question. No? Okay, Jonas, Zin, I'm going to ask you to come on stage then, in that case. Hi, welcome.
Sure. Hi, hello. So shortly for my background, I'm a Chinese student who currently studying in Germany. So during the session, you can promote the concept go biking or to have more car sharing. But I wonder whether such concept is only suitable for the European, because I'm from China. I know it's buying a car is rather like a symbolic that each household is definitely need a car. And then when I think to the United States, it's due to their location restriction. There's no chance really to go biking from one state to another state. So do you have the other concepts to these two countries, China and the United States?
Well, of course, that's a really good question, because I mean that's a challenge in general, right? You see good practices, you see best practices, but you cannot apply them to different parts of the world. So I have to admit, so all the things I'm suggesting, or all the things I was talking about earlier today, is a very Eurocentric perspective, and even more so, I'm talking obviously from a very German standpoint, because I'm a German civil servant. So yeah, I mean that is an option, but in the US they have this long distance travel buses. So they go from state to state. This is an option we don't really have in Europe or in Germany. I mean, there's kind of the Flix buses, but it's a different concept. So of course, you have to, ask the experts on every at every state in every different area to come up with this. And of course, citizens' wishes are different in other states. But Elia, I mean, you've been abroad
we are
for.
going back, it seems, to behavior, and behavior is absolutely cultural. So this is why your question is so well and so intelligent and puts a very important challenge. What I can answer in terms of Barcelona, we know the city of Barcelona quite well, city of Barcelona and its metropolitan area. We know how people move from one point to the other, especially to go to work, because when we planify for the worst case. The worst case is a congested city, so it's a peak hour in the morning, usually. And we know that 85% of the trips have less than 5 kilometers. These are the kind of trips that we want to move to biking. Of course, the ones that are coming from 50 kilometers away and so on, we can try to switch them to public transport, etc., with all the challenges that the COVID arises, taking into account the network of public transport that we have. But this is another war, let's say, to move to more sustainable mobility. Or biking or active mobility, walking and so on. Our target are these ones. And these ones are going to be changed through all these engagement activities, through all these community-based projects and so on.
Thank you very much, Leah and Julian. Thank you, all of you, for your questions. I mean, I think the point that it's heavily dependent on region, heavily dependent on the kind of transport you want to actually make, it varies massively from situation to situation. Folks, I'm going to ask you to all move sessions to the technology breakout. Before you do, if you can answer the poll in the poll section, and Julian and Aya, please stay where you are. So those of you we just had in group 2, please answer the poll, and then you can leave this breakout. I'm going to actually maybe click the take a break button so you know that we're kind of done here, and you can go ahead and join the technology breakout after this. Okay? Thank you very much, everyone. We are connected.
Our last mile. We were supposed to talk about that.
I mean, last mile.
Yeah.
It's ultimately all links back to the behavior aspect, though, right? Like we can talk about the technology, the actual ability to do so, but ultimately it's going to come back to, like, are people willing to accept this?
Yeah, sure.
Like, we have to, and I guess a lot of the conversation is, how do you create the environment through regulation, town planning, and the actual technology to allow people to have the choice, or even not have the choice, to therefore be more sustainable? And that's, I think, a huge challenge for businesses, regions, cities. It's crazy, but it's all very connected. Hey, folks, we've got some people coming in now. Wonderful stuff. I'm going to give us all just 15 more seconds. So I'm sure you all heard this in the last chat. Basically, if you'd like to contribute a question, please raise your hand and I'll invite you to the stage. Try and keep your question relatively short, and we'll try and keep our answers quite short and snappy to hear from you as much as possible, because we'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings. Feel free to also put just comments in the chat, like, more than welcome, and it's great to see a little feed going on there too. You can actually see some of what people have been putting so far. And finally, we are focusing on the environment with this particular breakout. Although we've talked about other things around societal stuff and around technology, try and angle the questions more towards the environmental factors. So please raise your hand if you have a question, and I'll invite you to the stage. Everyone's being very brave. I'll give everyone another moment. We have got enough people that someone would want to ask a question. So please go ahead and raise your hand if you have something to say. Otherwise, I have other questions for the team that I will ask them. No? Okay. So we spoke quite a bit about when we last spoke, and I asked you sort of what are the biggest things that you think are going to have an impact, biggest trends into the future. We said autonomous driving, and we said mobility as a service. I guess I get, from an autonomous standpoint, we spoke quite a bit about it in the technology session around, like, what it's going to take to change the manufacturing stream to actually kind of bring things on board, who's going to be responsible. But from a mobility as a service standpoint, like, if that's going to be the way that we make things more environmentally friendly, what do we need to do to actually get there? Like, what are we missing? What's the missing link here? Why aren't we there already? From an environmental standpoint, if we can.
Well, I mean, to be honest, mobility as a service is quite a broad concept. I mean, you can hardly grasp it. It could be an app. It could be, you know, it could be a general, you know, just a talking point someone throws in at a cocktail party. That is what mobility as a service really is. But for me, mobility as a service is really that you have the option to, you know, choose from different modes of transport, and that it's quite easy to connect them, and it's, you know, easy to have an intermodal, multimodal way of transport. And the environmental point of this really is that if you can connect different modes of transport, if it's easy for you, even if you have one single ticket for car sharing public.
Julia, I think we're losing you a touch there.
Yeah, I think that she's, but I can
really
further
will focus on, you know, choosing.
Sorry, Julia, we lost you there for your point.
Oh,
after you
sorry.
started talking about a single ticket option.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, exactly. So single ticket options is really important to stress here. And I'm trying to make it brief. So if you know, people can choose between different modes of transport, they will, because it's comfortable, because they don't want to, you know, be in a traffic jam in their own cars. They don't want to look for a parking lot for, you know, going around the same block for 20 rounds because there's nothing free, instead of just, you know, going there by foot, maybe the last, I don't know, 200 meters or something. So this is what it's all about. And if we're there, if, you know, because I don't really know any apps just now where you can book from A to B, but with 4 different modes of transport. So this is what the missing link is for me. But maybe Laia has some else.
Yes, we worked widely mobility as a service issues. We are founders of Mas Catalonia, which is the region where we are. We are involved in several research projects at a European level, and installing. One is the theory of mobility as a service. The other is the implementation of a mobility as a service. The implementation of a mobility as a service has some issues right now concerning data issues. For example, data, it's private. When we have a platform where all this data is there, who is the owner of this data? There are privacy issues that need to be tackled. So data is an issue. Governance is another issue. Who is going to be the entity that is going to manage this platform? It's an issue. The acceptance, the behavior, people. At the end, we are people. All people do not have this facility to interact with an application. We are getting these people out of the system, or how can we integrate these people in the system? Regulation at the end, public authorities, and when we talk about single ticketing, public authorities and public systems have regulated ticketing issues. They are not allowed to put the prices that they want, with different models in different cities and different regions in the world. Is this fair for private companies entering into this world that they don't have these stops? There is no public transport in the world that makes money right now, none of them. And private companies are entering into the market, and some of them are making money with other business models. This is also an issue. So regulation, technological is an issue. The way we pay today, it's not very innovative in many areas. We have to move to this, and there is an integration problem. And then all this to be sustainable, it's another issue, because at the end, mobility as a service, it's about options. It's about leaving people, choice what they want, make the choice, and the correct schemes, or the correct ways to do that. The option that they choose, it's the more sustainable. It's not easy to implement. So again, there are different mobility as a service more or less implemented in the world, but one thing is theory and the other is implementation, and we are still facing some issues, especially in Europe, where transport has been very regulated and is still very regulated.
Amazing, thank you. And kind of taking that idea of people's perception of mobility as a service and the different modes of transport, we've got a question from Teresa, which is, how do we ensure that we get a complete view of the impact on the environment from different mobility solutions? For example, batteries have an environmental impact on the metals used. And sorry, I'm just going to hand the mic to Teresa because you also raised your hand after you posed the question. So please just kind of finish off that question for me.
Yeah, sorry. I posted the question just to let you know that you had something in the pipeline.
Thank you very much.
So, I mean, we've heard a lot about electricity as a solution, but of course, batteries also has an environmental impact that may be is different. Like we have a positive environmental impact in the location of use of the mobility, and then a negative environmental impact in a different part of the production of the components. So how do we make sure that we get like a complete view on the global environmental impact?
Through circular economy, this is probably the answer. We do have, for example, a prototype of a robot. It's an autonomous delivery device. It's one of these nice robots that we have seen, some of us in YouTube today, and there are several companies moving in this direction. We are one of them, and we are doing the whole study of the circular economy of this robot, because it's not just about having this robot and putting it into the system and saying, okay, the city is more sustainable because I have this robot. As you said, there might be batteries. There is a battery in this robot. There might be the materials that this robot is made of. The wheels is not something very sustainable today. And this goes through working through a circular economy concept. SEAT, the automaker in Spain, and the Volkswagen Group are doing several projects that we are involved in about using more recyclable materials inside the car. Some of them come from rice, some of them come from other materials, and this is the way to move. This is the way to go so that the whole system is more sustainable, absolutely. But then it has an impact on price as well. But this is the challenge to solve. A very good question. I'm not sure if Julia
Sorry, I
wants to
think
further develop this.
I think I was away for a second, but I think I got the gist. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, people think that, those e-scooters or something, it's sustainable, but of course these e-scooters, I think they have like a life cycle of a year or something until they get trashed and thrown into a river. Well, yeah. So of course this is the goal, and also for this it's really important that you prolong the life cycle of something like this. You don't, production takes a lot of environmental impact, so you want to reduce this as well. Very good point of what Laia just said right now.
Thank you.
Nice. We have 1 minute left. I guess I just would like to ask, rather than developing a single product, if you're looking at my whole entire journey across 4 different modes of transport, like what in the world needs to happen as a consumer to actually get the information about how much impact my plane, my train, and my automobile have on my journey in 1 minute or 30 seconds?
Well, okay, really quick. So there's actually this kind of initiatives already. If someone of you is French, maybe from the border region, there's this open data portal called Fluo, F-L-U-O. Maybe you know it. And there's actually, if you put in a trip from A to B, you will get the footprint of this. And we're planning to do this right now this spring.
That's amazing. F-L-U-O.
I'm going to put it in the chat.
Thank you very much. Any comment from you, Laia, on that?
I guess that we have no time, but I'm happy with what Julia said, and it's
open data.
Yes, yeah.
Nice. We come back to the data point again. Everyone, thank you very much for your contributions. I'm going to just put a quick poll in the chat. If you can just quickly go to that and click, obviously, however you feel the conversation has gone. And then I'm going to take a break from this session so you can all leave it and join another session in just a moment. So I'll give you another 15 seconds to respond to that poll. And thank you again. And the link from Julia is there in the chat as well. And I'm going to close down this session now. And everyone who's in this right now, you are moving over to, I'll find you. Your group 2, you're going to society next, obviously the last one. So enjoy the next chat and I'll speak to you all soon.
Third, we are okay, right?
Yeah, it's like we're doing well with regards to the splits.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously,
just to know the order of magnitude.
No, it's going good. It's going good from that regard. But we can't see all of the analytics until right at the end, unfortunately. Hello to those of you who have joined us. Welcome. I'm sure you're all very learnt on this by now, but if you can raise your hand and I will invite you to the stage for you to ask a question. We're trying to keep the question answers quite short and sweet because we want to get through as many as possible. And please do try and keep to the topic of the environment and sustainability rather than going too broad, although we know that it's all very interesting. So as people are coming into the chat, I see that Paul has already got their hand up, so I'm going to ask them to ask their question to the speakers. So Paul, you should now be able to say hello.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm very interested in the behavioral.
Is he gone?
He clearly the term behavioral science was just immediately hit back again. Paul, I'm going to remove you from the stage and ask you to come up again because it looks like you've left and come back. So I'm going to remove you from the stage, and then if you can raise your hand again and bring you on board, and please make sure that the behavioral science question is related to the environment because that would be fantastic for all of us. In the meantime, while Paul raises his hand again, I'll ask the questions to the speakers. Hydrogen versus battery. What's better for the environment?
I don't know. I have to admit, I don't know that. I'm not in this. This is a topic I'm not familiar with because I'm dealing more with micromobility and data science. So I guess this is for some. Maybe Laia can.
Well, the answer is technology. It depends how it evolves. So today, installment of battery and hydrogen have other challenges in terms of refueling, in terms of stations, in terms of other things like that. And today, battery is still better for the environment, but it can change very quickly. And again, we have to look at the system with a circular economy from the beginning until the end. At the end, batteries are being, filled up with other sources of making this energy. And this is the point. What kind of energy are you, making to fill up this battery? And the whole automotive industry is launch and are doing a lot of cars. Most car makers in Europe and in the world have different models today, which are batteries which are sold as eco-friendly. But depending how we refill these batteries, eco-friendly is only in the cities or wherever you use this car, but you are producing energy that is not very environmentally friendly in most of European countries today, at least in Europe. I guess that the only one that it's environmental today is Norway. So this is the point, technology. So it depends how this technology evolves. We can answer to your question more drastically. What is true is that the automotive industry, they are producing batteries in an industrial way. So vehicles with batteries in an industrial way, and they are still researching on hydrogen, most of them. So it's the way to go, both of them, and let's see who wins the race.
Absolutely. So just to add maybe a comment on this, I mean, we see a lot more yeah, battery trains. We see a lot more research going on this, but of course, hydrogen. Just like a few weeks ago, they put the first hydrogen train to test like on a pilot track. So we will see. It all comes down to infrastructure as well, like how useful it is.
So candidly or honestly, have you seen a drive from cities, municipalities to want to get more renewable energy sourced to their particular location because of mobility? Is that happened, or have you not really seen that push for that reason?
Would you mind repeating your question? I think it was off for a second.
Have you or have you not seen cities or municipalities or regions specifically trying to make their energy sources more environmentally friendly because of the aspect of mobility that's going to be coming forward in the future?
Oh yeah, sure. Sorry, Laya. I'm just gonna have a real quick question answer to this. For instance, my state, the Ministry of Transport I'm working for, they have they focusing more on e-mobility. So they have they give some small local authorities partners the opportunity to get experts on e-mobility, on infrastructure, and they give them the support they want to have. So they're really focusing on e-mobility. Hydrogen is not, in the rural areas just now. It's not just.
Yeah, I may make further the point that we are involved in research. Volkswagen Group is right now, researching in both directions. Electric cars are already, being built everywhere. People are buying them, and you see them in the streets, hopefully more and more. But hydrogen is an option, and fission is going to be an option as well in the future. This is not today, it's not tomorrow, it's not in 2 years, but it will be also, might be a very sustainable option for mobility and for other.
And for everything,
issues.
right?
Yeah.
Paul, I'm inviting you back up to the stage again, so you can ask your question. So Paul, if you can accept, you have joined the stage. Wonderful. Hey, welcome back.
There we go. Hopefully now works.
Nice to see you again.
Thanks. So my question then came to behavioral science and its relation to the sustainable mobility. And also you can apply then afterwards that to more sustainable options in your day-to-day life. So are you working with behavioral scientists on any way in order to nudge people to take perhaps less comfortable, options on transport, but that are more sustainable and have a better impact for the environment? And what are they, if you are?
This has been widely studied in the past, and now, of course, and it's called the utility function. We, as citizens, when we walk out of home and we decide if I take the car, if I take the motorbike, I do a modal decision, and this is this utility. It's optimized in the equations to define a system. With several parameters. These parameters take into account if you as a citizen, for example, want to see something during your trip, and then you would take the bus or your car. And if you don't want to see anything, you will rather take the metro, even if the metro is a little bit longer than going by bus or the other way around. So these behavioral models are extremely important, are extremely interesting, and there is the whole research community that has been studying this widely. If this can be implemented in the real world with real solutions, at the end you are building a model which depicts what happens in the real world. And this can be used for several options to have future scenarios. And if we install a car sharing system in Barcelona where cars are blue, is people going to use that or not? And then you can see if they are going to use that with of course with a certain mistake. But yeah.
Yeah, so,
I can further give you information if you are really interested in that. It's a very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, right now you just said it, right? It's uncomfortable or slightly less comfortable than your own car to use. Like it's uncomfortable. Let's put it like this: the metro is uncomfortable. Biking is uncomfortable because it takes longer, for instance. So this is exactly what we need to tackle. I mean, there's the price issue. If car prices are going up, if fuel prices are going up, and public transport goes down, this will change the whole behavioral model because some people are very price sensitive, right? But also, if you in some rural areas, for instance, you cannot survive without your own car. So you need to bring the option and make it really convenient for people to use sustainable options. So this is one of the challenges one needs to tackle in the next few years.
So the convenience factor, I guess, comes from the stuff like mass, right? It comes from mobility as a service. What other things do you think will help make it more convenient to travel sustainably? Like, because convenience is key, clearly, when you want to get.
I did not quite understand your question. What is going to make more convenient what?
So if convenience is one of the issues that's stopping people from being able to travel with sustainable modes of transport, aside from just sweeping statements of mobility as a service will solve the problem, what other ways can we look to make transport sustainable more convenient?
Well, I want to make a strong statement here because it does not mean that vehicle and owning a vehicle it's inconvenient or it's more convenient or that it's absolutely needs to be the bad part of the equation. There are ways to make sharings, and there are ways to make things different that are not completely against sustainability and environmental impacts. Maybe if we had cars, but cars were full in our cities, this would be a good way to move. Maybe if we would build cars in a more sustainable way, and again, I'm repeating what I said before. Volkswagen is working on circular economy things. They are, making some interior of the cars with recycled rice and other options that can be very, very sustainable. If we move in this direction, this can be also very sustainable. And in terms of convenience, we have to work on that. So actually, the automotive industry went for car sharing very strong for some years, and then they realized, okay, people are not really willing to share cars. Why? Because, for example, and it's just an example, because of trash. When you use when you rent a car, there is enough time to clean these cars from one customer to the other. When you share these cars, sometimes it's not an option, and then people are not willing to use these systems or these services because of trash. And we are doing right now a project funded by the EU that with automatic vision and cameras in the car and so on, we detect if there is something. And we even use artificial intelligence to see where there is more probability to get trash, so that there is more probability that this car needs to be cleaned. It sounds kind of silly, but we are researching and moving in this directions. And I think that this is the way to go. So that it's not that everybody is going to move biking. So I don't think that my parents are going to bike anymore, even if they biked a lot when they were young. And they have also the right to move, and they are willing to go to places and live around. So these are the challenges that we need to solve all together.
Amazing. And then I guess we're kind of at time, and I haven't seen any of the hands being raised. So I'd like to just open one question which I saw during the other session that we ran, which was, should we be focusing more, and please don't say both, should we be focusing more on the impacts that consumers and citizens are having with their transport, or more on what, from the point of view of them moving around, or more on the impact that things like supply chain, etc., are having on the environment?
Julia, go ahead.
Well, sure. From my point of view, it's obviously the citizens, because that is what the state can do about. This is what initiatives. Yeah, public regulatory initiatives can solve. They can solve, the protection and the supply chain.
Why wouldn't they be able to impact supply chain from the point of view of giving them stricter rules to follow?
Well, yeah, they can, obviously, but it's harder. I mean, this is what comes back to this pull and push mechanism, right? I mean, you can only push people to the supply chain, change it, because you get fines or higher taxes, or you name it. But I'm usually a big fan of this kind of soft pull factors, where you can try to impact the behavior. Paul just said it, Laia just said it, and I'm much more a fan of this. Because it's more sustainable for the future, because people, if they want to do it from themselves, they will change the behavior for good, and not just because someone else forced.
Laia, any thoughts on that? On the same question that I kind of opened with?
Yeah, and this direction, I think that it is very important, and public-private partnership can also help, because at the end there are companies that have their interests. We as citizens have our interests, or our behavior or our priorities, let's say. And actually Paul talked about convenience, and these at the end are priorities. And on the other hand, there is also these public entities that we all represent, that we are all taking part, but at the end is a society. And public-private partnership can work together to attain these goals. If the objective is sustainability, we should all move together, and there are strategies to move in this direction.
Okay, nice. And then we're about to move back, but I'll give one. We've been given an extension, so I'll ask another final question, probably, because no one's got their hand raised right now. We're currently in Europe. A lot of us are. Many of us are. What role or position do you think the European Commission, for example, and the rule of the European as a zone should play in trying to make the mobility more environmentally friendly? So whether that's the council, or whether that's the commission.
Well, I guess they have a key role in this. There's so many initiatives going on, not just sustainability goals. I mean, you can also name the UN or something on this, but also just on a daily basis, I'm working with. Not sure if any one of you heard of Gaia X, for instance. It's like a data sharing concept. It's not really worked out so far, or at least not that I have heard of it. So the EU is really a key initiative here, I'd say.
Yeah, in terms of research and development and relationships with universities, the Europe and the European Commission launched several calls within the Green Deal in different areas. Green Deal has a big impact in mobility, and everything that is going towards a more sustainable mobility is going to be funded. This explains, or it's an impact of the big success of Europe in terms of environmental issues compared to other continents. I think that it's clear that we are farther advanced compared to Asia and compared to America, North America and South America in general. So we should be proud of that and continue moving towards that. And from the society, I think that it's also a message that young Europeans, and I don't want to say names, have been able at young ages to move masses in this direction. And this comes from Europe and from very young people. So let's continue moving in this direction.
For sure, for sure. Wonderful. Well, thank you for your responses. Thank you very much for the questions we've had as well. We're going to go over to the next session, which is all around the innovation platform. So I'm going to end this session, and please go and find it in your session schedule, and it'll be started in just a moment. I've also put a poll in the chat. If you'd like to just respond to that poll about this breakout, that would be great. I'm going to close this down in approximately 15 seconds. So if you can respond to that, and thank you all very much again, and I'll speak to you all shortly, I'm sure.